Hello everyone and welcome back to Animating Every Day Until I'm Good. We started the week off strong with a Monday full of vet visits after my cat knocked over someone's left out coffee and my dog decided to take it upon himself to start cleanup unsupervised. Between that and my other appointments, I wasn't able to sit down to work nearly as long as I wanted to on day one, so I decided to designate the first day to brainstorming and mapping out other ideas for animations I want to add to my portfolio. There isn't really much to show here, but here's a character I redesigned because I wasn't satisfied with her original look. Even if there are days where I don't get as much done as others, those days can still be good if I sit down to draw something at all. You guys have been giving me so much awesome advice. I'm truly so thrilled about the feedback I've been getting. I was kind of kicking myself about it actually because you guys saw so many things I hadn't been thinking about and I just found myself wishing I hadn't gotten so far into the project before I got the critique. I tried to implement my favorite bits where I could, but I was so far along in the process that I was mostly just trying to get it done. My two big rules when it comes to art are fail faster and at some point it just has to be done. The second one is pretty self-explanatory, but my fail faster rule comes from my experience at school and can be applied to much more than just animation. Basically, the idea is that making mistakes is unavoidable and you have to make shitty art first in order to make good art later, and the best way to know you're making mistakes is to have someone point them out to you. You want to show your art to other people as soon as possible, especially if it's just a shitty sketch. The earlier someone catches your mistakes, the easier it is to improve upon them and refine the finished product. In this case, I was possessed by hubris, and I forged ahead before anyone had a chance to point out my mistakes, so by the time I was spending hours on my final lines, people were only just suggesting some awesome improvements I should make. I broke my own rule, and either I'm going to suffer for it or my art is. I'm going to choose a happy medium where I go back and fix the things that I think are manageable because, like my second rule says, sometimes the art just has to be done. So on day 2, I finished up the line art. After tedious hours of drawing and forgetting all my other worldly responsibilities, I came up for air with this. Now clearly there are several places that need refining. The wounds blinking, the tendons jumping around, the horns doing the same. It's a mess. Unlike the catwalk cycle, which I animated on 1s, this cycle is animated on 2s. That means that every drawing appears for a total of 2 frames, and I usually animate on 2s unless I really want to show off something extravagant. In the case of the Roadkill God, I feel like the 2s are sufficient because I don't actually want his movements to look especially smooth. To that end, animating on 1s might actually detract from what I'm trying to portray here, and I'm definitely not just saying that because I don't want to go back for 10 more hours of drawing. I got a really good comment asking how I avoid wobbling lines, so while I'm on the topic of line art, I figured now would be a great time to tell you all what I told this commenter. It's definitely something that gets better with practice, but the particular thing I recommend practicing in order to improve this is confident mark making. When you put your pen to paper, or stylus to tablet in this case, you want to be making firm, confident strokes on the canvas. No feathering even when you're sketching. If your sketches look feathery or furry, that's a major sign that your mark making is not confident. Every single time you make a mark on the page, you need to be able to trust that your hand will move how you want it to. However, this is a skill that you build up as a beginner artist, and it can be hard to know how to really improve your mark making when you're already starting off in the dark staring down at that blank page. A few quick exercises you can use to improve your confidence here are line and circle practice, tracing, and drawing an entire piece without lifting your pen at all from the page. Line and shape practice is the best beginner approach. You basically just practice drawing long parallel lines over and over again next to each other without letting them touch as quickly as you can, or drawing circles over and over until your hand gets used to the motion. You can do this with other kinds of lines and shapes, of course, but those are my big 2 warm-ups that I recommend for building your hand-eye drawing coordination. Tracing is another good beginner practice for this, but I would obviously only advise you to use this as an exercise and to avoid claiming others' art as your own. Drawing without lifting your pencil is something I practiced a lot in college, and it was even more fun when you had to do the whole thing without looking at your paper. The idea here is that you want your hand to move in tandem with your eyes, and you really focus on moving your hand across the paper at the same speed that your eyes move across the reference. This means a lot of your work might turn out silly and nonsensical, but it's an awesome drawing exercise for anyone looking to improve their mark making, their hand-eye coordination, and how they translate a 3D image to paper, assuming your reference isn't an image. But back to the boiling lines issue, the main thing here is also that you want your lines to be consistent, not just in shape and width, but in the direction and momentum of their movement. If your lines are wobbling around, make sure you turn on the onion skin feature to see how the line is spaced between the one before and after it. If it's crooked or overlapping or not directly between those 2 lines, you're going to have a wobbling line. Picture it like walking. When you're walking, all of your steps take you forward in the same direction at the same speed. This makes the movement smooth. Now, if you were walking and suddenly took a step that was too short or too long, or it went backwards instead of forwards, your movement wouldn't look smooth anymore. Suddenly, the perfect spacing has been disrupted and you're gonna look like you're jumping around all over. Off topic, but still related, if you start running, you're still moving forward, but the steps are further apart. If your lines are moving across the page at the same pace, then adjusting the distance between them will impact how fast they appear to move. Sorry about the tangent. I just thought it might be helpful to some of you guys, since it sounds like a few of you are also artists looking for places to start. I hope we can grow together with this series. I decided to dedicate days 3 and 4 to fixing the mistakes I noticed on day 2, and for implementing everyone's critique where I thought it was feasible. I promise I read everything you guys had to say. You all had such such awesome and helpful critique. I just didn't want to go back and rework the whole deer for the 1000th time, so I promise I wasn't ignoring you guys. I'll just need to fail faster in the future. On day 3, I fixed up the intestines, and then on day 4, I went back and completely reworked the antlers. There were pros and cons to this. I definitely lost a bit of the 3D movement I had in the first version, but I was honestly so tired of reworking things that I decided to prioritize just making things consistent. Definitely a learning experience for what I'll need to do in the future to streamline the process, which is what the series is all about, so I'll count the win. I've been struggling to keep my energy up this week, which is pretty par for the course with me. My momentum for the first 2 weeks was awesome, and even though I slowed down a bit this week, I'm still proud of myself for powering through. That said, I managed to pull myself together a bit on day 5, which was dedicated to coloring our friend here. I had to do a bit of color selection, which I hate because my 2 instincts are to make things desaturated and plain, or to make them super saturated and intense, which you can imagine makes it hard to find a happy medium at times. I thought this would look a lot better once I added a background, so that's what I decided to spend day 6 doing. I thought I was doing so great. I was proud of my animation, I thought it looked cool, I whipped up this moody little background and gave it layers, I could parallax and everything, but what should I discover except that there are obvious consequences to not thinking shit through when you're animating a quadruped walk cycle. Of course the offset timing between the front and back halves would come back to bite me in the ass. Of course no animal can move consistently in the front and inconsistently in the back. I need to go back and rework the entire thing from the beginning. If I really want to make it work, I could let its back half just dangle, but that defeats the purpose of it being a quadruped. Oh, I wish I'd figured this out prior to the rendering stages. This just blew the whole project up in my face. My disappointment cannot be overstated. I should have studied more deer videos. I should have used my brain during the rough stages. Oh my god, this literally cannot be salvaged. It was salvaged. I had to hide like the entire bottom half of the character and I wasted my epic background, but at least something came out of it. I don't even know if I can use any of this in my portfolio now. I feel like this mistake is going to be so obvious to anyone who knows anything. Well, gamers, this is why we fail faster. An awesome learning experience for sure. On the bright side, I got a ton of practice in, a cool cycle, some background practice, and a better understanding of how to approach a cycle like this in the future. I feel like I made some super big mistakes, but I can't actually be that upset at the end of the day. Even if things didn't turn out how I wanted, I cannot overstate the learning experience here. You can't just break your subject down into separate parts without consequence. I need to remember that even one offset step will impact the whole character, not just that one foot. There's a good lesson here for everyone that unfortunately I guess you don't quite learn until you make the mistake yourself. Hopefully I've saved one of you 40 hours of work. Everyone get your tomatoes ready while I go put on my clown nose. Well, I wanted to have my next idea sketched out and ready to pitch to you guys before I signed off for the week, but it looks like I'll have to leave you hanging. I've got some awesome ideas I can't wait to get started on, so thank you again for stopping by for this week's update. Much love, and I'll see you guys in the next one.